Hello, everyone, again. Father Rob here. And this week we will be talking about the Transfiguration of our Lord. Normally, you know that the second Sunday of Lent is typically about the Transfiguration of Jesus up on Mount Tabor. The first Sunday of Lent, as we mentioned, was on Jesus' temptation out in the desert, where he goes out for 40 days and he's fasting and Satan tempts him. The second Sunday of Lent is normally about the Transfiguration, where Jesus goes up on Mount Tabor, as it's called, as we think it is, and then he's transfigured before the apostles of Peter and James and John. And so he's up there, and so we see the beauty of the glorified Christ, the Christ as his resurrected Christ, as he shines with all the light that he emanates there and that he receives from his Father. And I think that's so important for us, as we have to remember that what we receive from the Father, what we receive from God, we're called to share. We're called to share all those gifts. We're not called to keep them bottled up or keep them in ourselves. I think generally when things are bottled up, they sometimes have a tendency to spoil, and they need to be able to be aired and to be able to be shared with others. And as Jesus says, we don't put our lamps under bushels. We put them on the mountaintops so that they would shine. So we're called to shine as well. But what happens when we shine? It's not so much about gathering attention to ourselves. It's about making other things more visible, about making other people more visible. So when we shine with our own gifts, we bring out what's best in the other people. We bring out how they are contributing and how they are doing good for others and in this society. And so that's what we're called to do. And that's such a beautiful thing, is how we're called to receive the gifts of God. We're called to share them. And when we shine, we make other people appear well as well. So it's a kind of a win-win proposition. It's we shine with the gifts of God, and we make other people appear well likewise. And I remember always after a few years ago, after the Clemson, Alabama game, it was the national title. And I remember the Clemson coach, he said afterwards in the little interview, he said, I told the players two things. I said, if we win this game, it's because of the love that you have for one another. And always remember, it's not about the lights that are shining on you, but it's the light that is shining from you. And again, I think just like in the Transfiguration, it's not so much about the lights that are shining on us, but it's the light that shines out from us, and how we are able to receive those gifts and are able to share them. And also not only to share them, but also to put other people in their best light. And I was recently asked about how do we compare, or how do we work with being at the same time humble and also having self-esteem? And I don't think there's really a contradiction in the two things, because I think if we are humble, we will be radiating with God's gifts. We know we receive these gifts from God, and we radiate them, we share them, we make them shine. But that also gives us self-esteem, because we understand that it's not so much about ourselves, but it's about the love that God has for us and that he's pouring out in us. So again, as Jesus shines upon the mountaintop, as he is radiated with God's gifts, with God's love, and how he shines that before the others, we likewise are called to be canals of God's grace. We're called to be canals of God's light and the beauty that he has for this world. So let us be instruments of those grace, and let us be instruments of the gifts. And it's not just about ourselves. It's not about drawing attention to ourselves, but it's about shining with God's love and making that appear, and making other people come into their best way and bring out the best in other people. And that's how we will be transfigured and transformed in God's love and in God's grace.